Welcome back to the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. I'm Inquisitor Temperance Price, keeper of the Inquisition's Black Library, and this is the third volume in a report on the Valentyne Heresy, an actual play podcast set in the Genesis adaptation of Warhammer 40,000's Dark Heresy RPG. This report features Game Master Tom McGee and players Ryan LaPlante as Inquisitor Lucius Valentyne, Tyler Hewitt as Attikus Viz, Laura Hamstra as Eli Sharp, and Della Borovic as Morgan Rolls. My report shows that the Inquisitorial launch party has returned. Eli brought alcohol back with him, Atticus's power fist prevented the boarding party from dying in an engine explosion, and Valentyne discussed Lyric and Alto's deaths with Interrogator Cora while Morgan hid elsewhere. What will the band learn from the materials they stole from the Iron Kestrel? Find out next in this episode of the Valentyne Heresy.
Captain's log. Grimly moody. I mean, I at this point, I don't really know there's much I can do that'll be right in his eyes, but I did track that signal back in the asteroid belt, and I'm going to take us in, and I'm going to try real hard not to ding up the Marnie song at all. I didn't used to care too much when I got dings on my ship, but I really feel like, well, the Colonel, he's going to care, and I need him to care, but I just need him to respect and love me, you know? Eli and Attikus, you have returned from your sojourn over to the Iron Kestrel after an extraordinarily scary core meltdown situation that was happily resolved by some quick thinking on behalf of both Eli and Attikus, largely involving just tearing fucking wires out of the wall.
Because of the best roll ever. Yeah.
Well, also the strategy of just rip the obvious cabling, like you do, like all good electricians will tell you. You managed to shut down the core before it exploded, which is nice. So, with that out of the way, you were able to breach one of the cargo pods, and Eli, you recovered a large quantity of blasted metal,
right?
That you have kind of like gathered together in sort of a sling, a webbing bag, and of course, on the way out, you decided to just level with Attikus about the Amersec bottle, and recommended bringing it aboard as something for a special occasion, trying to bring the Colonel into your confidence, but Attikus, ever the staunch retinue member of Lucius Valentyne, has said he will inform Valentyne upon your arrival. So with that hanging over you, the two of you make your way back across the grapple to the Iron Kestrel. The ship itself is on a state of alert, having tracked the signal that was kind of the repeating signal that was being bounced off of the Iron Kestrel and kind of out into space, far deeper into the asteroid field. Valentyne has given orders to make the ship ready to venture inward, suspecting that this is the final resting place of Canehurst. That said, you brought back a discovery with you, as well as some investigation, which the ship is currently eagerly awaiting your report on. Attikus, you have this information about Eli, and I guess the choice before you is sort of around how you want to present that. Is this something that you would inform the Inquisitor of privately? Is this something you want to make a big deal about? What's kind of going on for Attikus right now?
I don't think there's much malice in it. I think we retrieved the terminal, which is what, like, we were out there for like a fact-finding mission. Couldn't find anything else useful, but we did find a fine bottle of Amersec?
Amasec.
I've been calling it Amersec, that's my bad.
It's fine.
We did find like a fine bottle of Amersec. I just did it again.
It's a knockoff brand. It's fine. Yeah. It's very expensive, but it's from a slightly different world. It's Amersec. It exists.
Eli suggested maybe for a special occasion, and Attikus took that as like, yeah, for the crew. It's like, yeah, sure, bring it, but it will be in the report like everything else. So there's no malice. It's just like, there's a book and we're doing things by it.
Love it.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay, so as soon as you kind of make your way into the oh my god, I had the same problem last time. The airlock Literally, the mimetic device in my brain now is like, if you piss off Laura Roslin, she will send you out the airlock.
Yeah.
So you arrive in the airlock, and of course, it's one of those situations where, Eli, you kind of have to arrange all of this bundle, because as soon as artificial gravity kicks back in, there's just kind of a massive sound as these huge slabs of metal. We talked about them being kind of the size of like a car door, or like the hood of a car, or the trunk of a car. Just kind of slam and slide everywhere and kind of fall, bouncing away. But of course, there's like staff on hand. It's not like you're doing this stealthily or anything. So it's kind of quickly seen to, and the pieces are arranged around. Valentyne, would you want an immediate report?
Oh yeah, I mean, if they're back on board, Valentyne would have said, "Yes, we're going to pursue the signal, go after what we're doing, do it stealthy, be smart." He doesn't know how to fly a fucking spaceship, so he's just going to have to trust Grimly to do that. So yeah, he would want to get a report. He would also basically, if it was up to him, he'd be like, bring it all down to Magi Gideon Kotov. I'll meet you there. We'll see what he can learn. Frankly, none of us are equipped for this kind of investigation.
Yes, sir. Understood. That's all the instruction Attikus needs. He's back. He's got the stuff. He's bringing it down.
Fair enough. And you've got the black box still as well, Attikus.
Yeah, that's, I think, probably the main thing that Attikus is carrying.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And how about you, Eli? Anything you'd want to add to this before we go see Gideon?
No, I mean, like, Eli's just, like, efficient, putting things where they go, reporting as ordered.
Great. So leaving Morgan to kind of continue her clandestine operations, as she's been doing over the past few episodes, in terms of keeping an eye on the comings and goings of Cora and the other things on the ship as ordered by Valentyne. You kind of get like, I was going to say grav lifters, but they're not that technologically advanced. It really is like, treaded, not forklifts, but kind of like, box movers. Like it's not a...
It's like a servitor probably of this world, just with like forklift hands.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
So, just cranking things up and just sort of slowly moving the pile. But sure enough, with all hands helping, you get it to Kotov's kind of laboratory easily enough. The laboratory is looking more and more like one of the rooms on the Nebuchadnezzar in the Matrix, where there's just like increasing amounts of cables hanging from the ceiling. There's a large central console where he built his little safe box, but there's more and more just kind of like the room is clearly being stripped so that bits and pieces of the ship can be repurposed in order to make things. You can tell one of the big things he's working on is building the new brain scan chair as ordered by Valentyne for whenever that process needs to get underway. But he's also kind of just turning it into a proper machine shop as well. So if he needs to build new things, he's capable of doing it. Laura, you've got an expression on your face. As Eli,
no,
have strong feelings about that?
It's just like he's doing a lot of stuff, and like can't trust him. So I think Eli like spends quite a bit of time just kind of outside the doorway with his arms folded, just kind of like watching him, like eyes narrowed.
Fair enough.
Just like constantly assessing and reassessing the threat.
Sounds good. I feel like, Attikus, you would probably have Grimly watching this pretty closely as well, where it's just like, hey, are the communications being tapped for this? No, it's just power. Like, that's all you get. It's the classic, Hannibal Lecter in prison thing where it's like, no, you don't get the internet. We'll give you lights and books, but you can't just have a fucking phone line because you'll do bad things. We know you will.
Yeah.
So kind of creating that black box style situation. So the metal's brought in along with the black box. I assume black box is sort of top priority, or examining the wreckage.
I mean, Attikus would assume black box.
Valentyne?
If Valentyne has arrived, black box first.
Yeah, we'll say like everyone has coalesced as
yeah. Let's look into the black box first, because it may tell us what they were looking for. Otherwise, we'll move on to the further investigation. These were the only two things that were recovered, scrap metal and this black box?
Scrap metal, black box, and a bottle of spice-chilled Emersex, sir.
Interesting. I'll take that third thing for myself, thank you. And he's just going to scoop up that bottle and slip it into the pocket of his storm coat.
Eli's
That's perfectly
eyes
acceptable to Attikus.
track the bottle's movement. But he says nothing.
Amazing. It's a tense moment, even though there's no stakes and you're not going to do anything to ruin it. But still a tense moment for Eli.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Amazing. So with all of that, then the Kotov goes and plugs the black box into sort of a console nearby. You can tell it's got like a lot of frayed wires and things are just like purpose built for this. And he very quickly sets about kind of like forging new connections and powering it up and everything else. Looking at it, just says, well, this is, I always wonder why they don't make the whole ship out of this, like if this thing can survive anything. He looks around kind of like he's done this bit a bunch of times and he always expects a reaction and there's never been one. And he's kind of hoping this will be his time.
Valentyne is a fucking stone just waiting for results.
Attikus doesn't like him or trust him, so no, doesn't give. Even if he did think it was funny, he doesn't give him the satisfaction.
Eli's arms folded.
Does Attikus think it's funny or no? I just want to know as Ryan.
No, I think if someone else made the joke, it would probably land funnier. But because he doesn't like him and trust him, it doesn't matter.
Amazing. Yeah, it doesn't land for anyone. Like no one's thrilled about this. But then he just stands there like a bad stand-up comic who doesn't know when to move on, and kind of lives with it for a few moments too long, and then just turns back a little too casual to the console. So after a number of beeps and sparks and occasional false starts, the black box kind of hums to life, and immediately one of the kind of old, vaguely Fallout-y screens that's just a little off color with sort of the green on black text starts scrolling through available data that was stored in the black box. So you see a number of reports that are kind of too early to really matter, but it's pretty easy to just zero in on the information that you actually want. There are 3 logs from Captain Loris Tremaine, who notably is a man who looks a bit like Wesley Snipes. So not who you found aboard the ship. He's got the sort of classic 40K, like singular red sort of glass, almost targeter eye, and then sort of some implants and augmentations to the side of his face for navigation. Otherwise, confident looking guy, seems, in good shape, confident, owns the space, and is... kind of has given a few reports. So essentially, it would seem that the Iron Kestrel took on a contract from North Star Haulers. This was a long-standing contract, one that had almost like a backlist contract at this point, in terms of having been open for so long with no results, that it was kind of a bounty that had just, like, almost an evergreen bounty at this point. Like, it's the one on the board that everyone just kind of skims past. North Star Haulers are a large, they're not quite like a rogue trader affair. They're sort of an intersystem hauling company, hauling concern, whether that is, other ships, whether that is cargo. That's basically their deal is if you need something from one place to another at normal speeds, they're your folks. But it would seem that some time ago, North Star Haulers lost a couple of their ships. According to the contract that Tremaine describes, the 2 tugs took an off-the-books job which wasn't unheard of within a lot of the hauling companies. Everyone wants to be a Han Solo in their day, and there's a lot of smuggling that does occur down by the docks, as the Wire has told us. But in this particular instance, the tugs went off on a job and just never came back, which was a huge sort of dark mark on North Star haulers and has cost the company quite a bit. So the bounty is actually rather high, in almost like an alarmingly high rate for this kind of job. In theory, 2 missing tugs isn't really that big a deal in the greater scheme of things. But if your only job is to deliver things safely on time and 2 of your vehicles that do that just mysteriously disappear and you can't find them again, that's a bit of a fucking problem. So North Star Haulers has been in decline, and as a result has put a sizable bounty in the hopes of wiping this dark mark off their ledger and kind of being able to continue business as normal. Tremaine describes in his later logs the sort of exhaustive hunt from kind of port to port that eventually kind of led them to this corner of the galaxy and to this particular asteroid belt. In his final recording, he says, the crew and I are quite excited because we've been chasing these damn things across half the galaxy, and it looks like we're finally zeroing in on where they went. Now, this place looks like a perfect spot for an ambush, so we're being very, very careful on our way in. Honestly, if I was a pirate of a different ilk, this is where I would park my ship. So it's not outside the realm that they got ambushed, but, I'm also kind of wondering, this place is a great hiding spot, not just for an ambush, but for something bigger. And I kind of got to wonder what 2 tugs would be hauling that could be all the way out here. So me and the kids, we're going to go take a look. And, I'm confident we're going to find something pretty special. This is Captain Torres, Captain Tremaine. I always like to go by my first name. It's confusing. And it just makes for bad logs. Bad captain, but it's my ship, so fuck it. Captain Loris Tremaine signing off. And there is no further log. According to the manifest, you can determine fairly easily that the person you found aboard the ship was First Mate Leanne McIntosh. There is a log of cargo being loaded into the cargo bay, so the metal that you found, as well as a kind of incomplete report that suggests that a body was brought aboard. But it's not filled out. There's no additional details. You get the sense from looking at these logs that that's probably the cargo that was damaged in the second cargo bay and is thus lost to you. But report of a body, notably not a crew member.
Okay.
Did you discover this body while you were over there?
No, sir. There was a body in the captain's chair there. Believe, according to the manifest, that would be one First Mate Leanne McIntosh.
So we don't have the captain. We don't have any other members of the crew. We don't have this body, and this metal has been reported in the hold. Does it say what it's from, Gideon?
And Gideon quickly scans it. He says, and I think you've got your erstwhile adept kind of looking over his shoulder, also just desperately, Ivanikov is just trying to kind of get his eyes on it as well. And Gideon says, I've been guilty of filing some incomplete paperwork in my time. It's usually a good way to kind of, hide all the mad science, if we're going to call it that. All this reporting here, it's incomplete. This all seems almost like automatic logs, like they picked the default thing from the menu just so that something would be there. But if I were to venture a guess, someone was supposed to finish reporting on these things and just didn't. Now you said you found someone with a bullet in their head. Well, there it is.
All right. So between you and Teseus, I would love to know what this metal is. Whatever they were looking for within the field, apparently we are moving towards. and they lost their captain in the process. Whether that was the body they found on board or there were others. Fantastic. This is an ongoing mystery, unless anyone has any other ideas or theories that could enlighten me. Eli, what are your thoughts?
I mean, it's hard to know what happened, but with no more bodies and another body being brought aboard, who knows what that other body could have been? Some Xenos or mutant that consumed the rest or killed them off, or we just don't know.
And what was Leanne's cause of death?
She appeared to have taken her own life, sir.
Consistent with the possibility of abomination, but at the same time, the abomination was not on board, which would mean it would need to be spacefaring, which eliminates the majority of warp incursions because they won't last that long. And the odds of Xenos are unlikely if it was possible for one to commit suicide so speedily, one would think, if the crew were being overpowered within one large room.
Eli, do you, I think we established you've got a skill for your understanding of ships, correct? Were we going with like tech use, I think, maybe?
I believe so. I'm pretty sure that's
Can you roll
what
me a
we've
tech
used.
use at difficulty 2, please?
Yeah, difficulty 2, just standard.
I'm going to give you a boost because you're being asked direct questions by a superior about a thing that you're kind of knowledgeable about, which I think actually, like, through the fog of Eli's trauma and addictions, is like a beacon. Like, what if a commanding officer is just giving him instructions on a thing?
Yeah.
That's good. This is about ships, so I'm going to give you another boost.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'm going to give you one setback for
there it is.
rabbit holding, only because now that you're thinking about Xenos and the possibility of Xenos, it's just like the clarity of your thought is a bit muddled.
Yeah.
In terms of story points, I believe we're sitting at 1 in 4 in my favor. Is that
okay?
Does that track with all your notes?
I just remember I used one.
I've got 2 and 3, but
I've
it could
2
be
and 3.
1 and
All right,
4.
let's go 2 and
I've
3.
got 2 and 3.
That's cleaner.
Wait, in whose favor?
His favor.
In my
It'd be
favor.
his.
I'm going to spend 1 to upgrade one of these dice because this is a low roll.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the upgraded. All right, cool. I'm
Cool.
good to roll.
All right, let's do it.
Oh, 2 successes, 1 triumph. Woo.
Well, damn. Eli, as Valentyne is laying out these details, and you're thinking about what would drive the first mate to commit suicide if warp incursion wasn't possible, which honestly I don't think it even really crossed your mind as a possibility, but now that it has, it's like, oh right, you don't need to be worried about one corner of the galaxy anymore. You have to be worried about every corner of the galaxy. One thing that occurs to you is the engines were damaged and disabled. That's part of the reason they overloaded when tried to turn the power back on. A quick examination of the logs in terms of ship diagnostics does suggest the ship took damage and was rendered I was going to say obsolete. Man, I am bad with words today. Was rendered immobile.
Yeah, okay.
You convey all of that to Valentyne and to Attikus. This is just something that you, as someone who understands ships, would register as like, if a seaman shot themselves in the head, why would they do it? And it's like, one option is they were, there's an abomination, there was something else. But I think your brain would immediately jump to like, oh, but also the ship was disabled. So
Yeah.
it's a clear possibility of someone who is trapped on a broken rig in the depths of space.
For all we knew, she was out here on a ship, couldn't be repaired until she starved or dehydrated or froze to death and decided to end it in a less painful way.
The bottle of Amasec in Valentine's pocket, Tom, is the seal broken or is it still shut?
The seal is broken. It's in it's in like a vaguely atmosphere proofed bottle. Like, it's not in its original glass bottle. It's in like, one of these fucking things, like the equivalent of a space water bottle, basically, that would keep it from immediately going bad or freezing in
Or
the
boiling,
depths of space. But
depending
yes,
on-
it's clearly it's clearly been enjoyed.
Interesting. That appears to be our strongest theory, either trapped and alone or determining not to be captured while others perhaps were. Excellent. I require the study on the metals. Otherwise, we continue our forward journey, just with greater approbation about the possibility of danger. We've known this mission is going to be dangerous, and which is why it is good that we aren't 3 low-level pirates in what one could charitably call a shitbox. So let's keep it together, everyone. I'd like to double the watches on all hours and get me answers about this metal. Fast.
Yeah, it's not a hard investigation.
Then I don't need to leave. Continue, gentlemen.
Gideon's just like, oh, I got like, just turns the page. He's like, okay, yeah. So as we described previously, the shitbox thing is absolutely right for the Iron Kestrel. This is high grade, sort of professional shipbuilding material, but it is incredibly unadorned. Now that you've read about the tugs, this is absolutely, this is like garbage truck material. Like a lot of places do like try and make the garbage trucks fancier, but in some places, like if this is a construction vehicle, it doesn't need to look fancy. It serves a very specific industrial purpose, and that's really the only reason that it matters. The markings NS3 and NS8 are consistent with the 2 missing tugs. There
was NS. I only had NS3.
You only found NS3, yeah, because you were floating in a dark ship with a bunch of metal that was going to explode. But
so there's NS8 in there too. Okay.
You found what you were supposed to find. It's just now that there's more time and it's more casual.
NS for North Star. I got it now. Thank you. Jeez.
This definitely looks like metal. And it's not like they got the nameplate off both ships. It's like they got the nameplate off one, and then like the serial numbers are consistent on the others. So clearly from 2 different ships. The most notable thing about this material is that again, it's heavily blast scarred. A sort of preliminary look from the sort of scans in the bay that are being interpreted here in the lab is definitely that there is las cannon damage to these. And from the direction of the blast patterns, it's fairly easy to ascertain that the explosion came from the back forward. So it wasn't an internal combustion. It was very much like you get the sense that
they were being pursued.
Possibly, yeah.
Does the Iron Kestrel have las cannons in its complement?
It has lower grade weapons. Ryan, I don't even know what these would be on a, like, despite my brief flirtation with Battlefield Gothic. I'm not sure what the lower level weaponry would be, but basically in Star Wars terms, I'm thinking like the Millennium Falcon has a bunch of lasers on it, but they're not the same as like a Star Destroyer's turbo laser cannons.
Yeah, so there are like macro cannons and some other more like souped up weapons. Otherwise, las cannons are probably comparable to what you'd see on like a fighter jet or stuff like that.
Okay, then the Kestrel would have
universe.
las cannons, whatever the capital ship equivalent one level up would be.
Oh yeah, they've got like lances and crazy shit.
There you
yeah,
go. So that's more what this damage looks like. This is like a high grade munition hit these ships and blew them up. Far more powerful than anything Kestrel is packing.
Would he guess, based on what he knows superficially, I guess maybe he'd ask Eli, because I don't know if he'd have the answer to this question. Eli, if these are the weapons that they fully appear to be based on the spectral analysis, are those weapons that pirates would have in their possession, or does this suggest something greater?
Tom, I'm guessing it's something greater.
Yeah, in your experience, unless pirates have taken a pretty big ship, there wouldn't be much chance of this. Also, given the Imperium's tight hold on, what high grade weapons there are, it's highly unlikely.
Sir, these are high grade weapons here. The Imperial Navy does not let these fall into the hands of pirates that easily, if at all.
Interesting. Then this could link with Canehurst's ship. This could link elsewhere, or these tugs could have been lost due to some sort of illegal action which North Star was either aware of or unaware of. Let's send signals back to the Inquisition stronghold to have North Star audited by, let's just say, some of our more enthusiastic brethren, and continue onwards, knowing that we are a dangerous fish in these waters, but there are strong odds that sharks are nearby.
Something just occurred to me, sir.
Yes,
Not
please.
sure of the logistics of these tug ships, but might it be possible that whatever it was they were hauling had large guns and might have shot them?
That is entirely possible. I mean,
Are these craft capable of towing other craft? Is that something that they would do?
Yeah, Kotov is like enthusiastically nodding, such that his goggles keep falling out. But says, "Yes, I mean they're good for hauling, but based on my quick scan of the kind of ships available to North Star haulers, well, that's a big part of what they do. Salvage, moving disabled ships. That's a big part of their business."
Right, and so this is an off-the-books operation that these two tugs were sent on, so maybe it's a ship that, I'm quite new still to the finer parts of the Inquisition, but maybe a big ship that people aren't supposed to know about. Maybe it's big enough to hold these impressive weapons that have apparently destroyed them.
an interesting theory, and one that I find highly fascinating. Either these tugs were stealing something that was armed heavily enough to perform as a capital ship, or stealing a prize so valuable that a capital ship or something larger got itself involved to stop them from taking it. There be dragons in this field.
So,
Sure,
what kind
this
of
was
ship?
Sorry, Tyler.
Oh no, I clearly you both have an idea, so I'm going to go to Eli first and then Attikus. I do want to hear both of these. Don't let your opinion be changed by the other person. Eli.
Sir, if this was an officially sanctioned attack and destruction of, some thieving vessels, then there would be records of it somewhere.
We assume they could have changed their transponders. There could be other losses. I do agree. Teseus, let's check with the local fleet registrars to see if there was an action recorded with pirates or some other tug-related incident, let's say within 3 months either side of the approximate date of the last log.
So he'll scoot off and do that. Tyler, if you want to do your bit, he'll return back after that. This is a quick check. Again, you're still like you're probably out of comms distance for most convenient things, but the on having kind of plugged into the network when you were back at Last Gleaming, you actually have access to a bunch of your offline Wikipedia is pretty fucking good now.
Yeah, we updated iOS just before we left.
Yeah,
so.
you've got a new background. You're not really sure how you feel about it, but
Jesus.
next time you change it, you're going to miss it a little bit,
Mm-hmm. They really want to walk us through new features that are available, but we all just want to do our fucking job, so we don't click
Siri
to see
is
what
just
they are.
a skull that screams at you.
Survey, yeah.
Survey.
Survey screams on the inside.
Yeah.
Would you like me to check contacts? No, Survey, we're good. Thank you. Okay, great. Attikus, go ahead.
So if this is a viable theory, then whose distress signal are we following now? If there's something with big guns out here, is that maybe bait or something?
We know that this is quite possibly going to be pirates. It could be Canehurst's ship itself. It could be something else. We need to focus on our primary mission, but at the same time, information is the greatest gift that the Emperor can give us, and one can always call it the greatest source of personal inspiration. However, we do need to tell Grimly Moody right now that we cannot be seen by anyone.
Oh, I'll let him know, sir.
Attikus, trundles off. Yeah.
Great. Eli, something you would know that you could convey to Valentyne, that you and Morgan would both know and I think be able to pass along, is that Canehurst's ship, the Winged Prayer, is about the same size as the Marnie's Song. It's a little sleeker. It was built... it's probably like a little newer than the Marnie's Song. You get the sense that like Billingberg's deal coming from old money was very much like he bought the best thing at the time, then just continued to upgrade it.
Right.
Whereas Canehurst being, less moneyed in some way, or like newer money, I guess, newer Inquisition. He just moved to the block, has a slightly newer ship, but definitely not something that would have lance level weapons on it. That's not a, it's similarly armed to this.
Yeah, I'd convey that.
Good to know. The threats elsewhere, fabulous. We're just collecting enemies being gifted to us by the Emperor. Thank you.
Meanwhile, in the cockpit, Attikus, you arrive with a message for Grimly, who is currently flying very carefully towards the asteroid belt.
Moody.
He kind of like unplugs from the jack in the side of his head, and he says, "Listen, sir, I can stand at attention if you want, but I'm also trying real hard not to get us hit by any of these here asteroids. So, what would you prefer?"
Keep doing that.
Great. Jams it back into the side of his head. His eyes roll back up, and the ship just adjusts ever so slightly. And he says, and his voice is almost slightly digitized when he's piloting. He just kind of says, like, "How can I help you, sir?"
There's been an update to your mission, Moody. We are to continue on course. However, stealth has become paramount, potentially to our survival. So that means that if you screw this up, not only your life, but the lives of everyone on this ship are in peril.
Understood, sir. Go in silent. And immediately, like, all the lights on the ship kind of come down to that kind of like dim blue emergency lighting. Immediately, the thrust cuts out a little bit, and the ship begins to move much slower, almost moving on impulse. And you can see it's just kind of like killing all the systems that would be loudest in terms of their electronic signature and everything else.
Attikus nods in satisfaction at that and returns.
Depressingly, Grimly is plugged into a machine, cannot see that nod of satisfaction. It really would have made his day. But, he can just do the job. So you return to Kotov's lab around the same time that Ivanikoth arrives, and Troseus just says, all right, Valentyne, I've looked at the records. There's certainly no record of anything that big. It's just going missing. This would, I think, have been rather large news to the Citadel and to the surrounding area if a large ship just went to, poof. I checked back a little bit further than the 3 months, and there is no record of this anywhere nearby. Now, as that said, in looking into the North Star Haulars, it would seem that they have a rather large reach, so it is not outside the realm. They could have brought something from a bit further, perhaps somewhere very far, I do not know. But yes, there is no record of pirate. Certainly many, many, many pirate attacks, but nothing on something this big. They are often cowards who hide in the night, not... They are the small fish who do not fuck with the shark, is, I guess, what I am saying.
All right, it wasn't Imperial action, which means this is either something involving taint, something that someone is covering up. My instinct suggests this could be the Cabal, knowing that we are on the work and on the path to stop them. Unfortunately, there are myriad threats throughout the galaxy, so could be Xenos, could be something else. Hopefully it's the Cabal, because I would love some additional clues and to send a few people screaming back to hell.
And with that, I was going to say the Iron Kestrel. That's not the ship we're on at all. The Marnie's Song kind of slaloms through some of these asteroids. And again, there's something, I think, additionally, like the tension you can feel about all these unanswered questions, both about the Confederacy lurking in the shadows, the Shadow Cabal that's plotting the ultimate kind of blasphemy against the Emperor, but also of all the unanswered questions coming from your journey to the ship and the space you're entering. it leads to kind of a tense moment as the ship kind of makes its way through. I'm curious, Eli and Attikus, I think we know where Valentyne's head's at, but where your head's at as we kind of come into, as we enter the darkness, as it were.
I think this is another one of those things that pushes like Eli immediately into like alert, ready, crisp naval officer, because it's like suddenly shit's getting serious, threats all around, you know.
Gotcha.
Attikus is trying to, when the things that Inquisitor Valentyne says, Attikus tries to embody those kinds of things. And so in hearing that, information is valuable, he looks at this sort of unknown situation that we're going into, not with like fear or like nervousness, but more like, I think, like trying to like open himself up to be like, what could this be? How does this help us? That's kind of where his head is at, is trying to open himself up to just be ready for whatever's out there. Yeah.
Great. And Valentyne, you've obviously kind of made your statement on it. Is there anything going on for you beyond that? Or is that just, are you being truthful with your crew?
Yes, Valentyne is functionally where he's at. He's functioning in a gray zone. He doesn't have all the answers. He knows the things he knows. The others are nebulous possibilities. He just needs a few more things to be able to fall into place before he can make a truly decisive plan. The one thing he would do after he leaves this area is go have a quick talk with Thaddeus Thunderhorn, the doctor. Because he's learned there are immediate problems, and then there are problems that are in the very near future that you also have to plan for, assuming everyone will be alive then. Otherwise, you never get anything done in the Inquisition because you could all die in 20 minutes.
Right.
Excuse me, Doctor. He'd just knock on... The door would open for him. He's the fucking Inquisitor, but he'd still knock on the frame politely.
Yeah, Thaddeus is like really taken aback that you knocked. Like he's just used to people storming in and yelling things at him. He kind of starts and turns and says, "My Lord Inquisitor," and like bows so low, full like wrist curling, like low regal bow. Manages to kiss his necklace of Aquila's while he's down there. But of course, since you speak with the voice of the Emperor, like you're a big deal for him. He immediately straightens and kind of stands at attention, which takes up a lot of the room.
Dr. Thunderhorn, I have a question for you about blood work in particular. I believe there are several members of this crew who struggle with, one might say, addiction issues, and I hope to find them a happier future. But before I can do that, I need to be sure that they're able to function at their best during their duties. How long after ingesting an illegal drug will it show up in the blood work? I'd like to give them a chance to get sober before we run the first test.
He does a full goat man beard stroke, which is just like a delightfully like long extra amount of beard stroke, and says, well, I could certainly arrange for blood samples to be taken after the average length a street drug is within the system. I assume we're talking about the more readily available things, not anything military grade or particularly exotic. Is that fair to say, Lord Inquisitor? He's calling you Lord Inquisitor because every Inquisitor is Lord to him.
The Valentine's just accepts all of his additional compliments because he can tell that, like, A, arguing with this guy is going to take forever. Also, B, he is an abomination, so he should be polite. These just check out for him. He's a useful abomination, which is why Valentyne has no fucking problem with him. It's not personal. It's just like, nope, that's what you are, and you have to accept that. It's the most dangerous and insidious kind of xenophobia.
Yeah.
I don't believe it'll be anything too strange because I don't believe they'll have access to it over an ongoing basis. But I would say anything military grade that you have in this room would be very important to include in these tests. Whatever the average time is, I don't know if it's 3 days or 7 days or whatever, if you could just circulate notice in writing to all of the crew that you will be taking samples in that amount of time, we'll find out who can actually sober themselves up and who is what one might call a bit more of a liability.
Yes, I will have Trisaeus spread that around so that people don't spit on it and throw it back in my face, as often my large-scale communications are like to do. Very good, Lord Inquisitor, it shall be done. We will set it for 1 standard week from now. We've been in space long enough that any reserves should be running rather low, or at the very least be stretched a bit thin, which would also, of course, come up in the blood work. If someone is as addicted as you fear, we should be able to tell whether they are ingesting small amounts just to balance themselves out, or are taking large amounts because their body has become dependent on it.
Excellent. And Dr. Thunderhorn, I do need to make this clear. You are an abomination, but at the same time, you are a tremendously useful abomination who I consider to be an important member of my crew. If anyone on this ship takes anything that you have given them in an official or unofficial capacity and spits on it or you, I expect you to report that to me immediately.
This is a real rock and a hard place for Dr. Thunderhorn because he wants to do what you're telling him to do, but he is also deeply uncomfortable with it. You hear him grit his teeth, which, given how many teeth he has, is quite a thing. And he says...
It's like hearing his zippers, though. Go.
Yeah, it's just like a bag of rocks. He just says, I will take that under consideration, Lord Inquisitor. I, of course, live to serve as long as I exist as an affront to the Emperor's gaze. I do ask, if I may, that you think fondly and kindly of those that do spit upon me and confront me thus. They only do as the Emperor demands one does with abominations. And he is kissing the necklace as fast as he can whenever he says Emperor, but he's not breaking the conversation.
I understand and agree with everything you said, except taking my orders into consideration. I require to be informed.
Very well. It shall be done.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Thunderhorn. I appreciate your professionalism and your empathy.
He nods and says, and I appreciate your willingness to forgive an abomination a slip in the chain of command, and just throws himself to the ground.
And Valentyne just turns, clicking his heels in perfect Schola Progenium style, and exits.
You hear, just as you're going down the hall, nailed it.
And Valentyne smiles to himself at that as he walks away, because that's perfect. It's like, kept him obedient, kept him afraid. He's going to do his fucking job. Valentyne's still the Inquisitor.
Yep. You arrive back on the sort of on the bridge. As Grimley's actually taking the jack out of his head, you can feel the ship kind of slowing around you, which is odd because there doesn't seem to be anything in front of you, which is when Grimley says, Sir, I think we're here. And pointing kind of with almost a trembling hand through the viewport, just says, you know that vast darkness of space up ahead? That's a fucking derelict capital ship.
This episode of the Valentyne Heresy features Ryan LaPlante at the Ryan LaPlante on Twitter as Inquisitor Lucius Valentyne, Tyler Hewitt at Tyler_Hewitt on Twitter as Attikus Viz, Laura Hamstra at EL Hamstring on Twitter as Eli Sharp, Del Borovic at Deltastic on Twitter as Morgan Rawls, and our Game Master Tom McGee at McGeeTD on Twitter. This episode was edited and mixed by Laura Hamstra, and the Valentyne Heresy's artwork was created by Del Borovic at delborovic.com, DELBOROVIC. Our theme song is The Hordes by Megan McDuffie, and our ads use the tracks No Control and Chiefs by Jazzar, JAHZZAR, available at freemusicarchive.org. When it comes to Dum-Dums and Dice, you can visit our website at dumdumdice.com. Our Twitter and Instagram are at dumdumdice, and on Facebook at facebook.com/dumdumdice. We have merchandise available at redbubble.com/people/dumdumdice, and most importantly, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/dumdumdice. That's DUMBDICE. Ave Imperator, and death to all the heretics.
Dum-Dums and Dice has to give a special thank you to the supreme beings of our Patreon at this time. The Half-Blind Prophet, Christopher Little, Sue One, George Dolby, Richard Cranium, Sammy Boy, Orion Birchfield, Scott Garland, Benjamin V, Gavin and Abby McDonald, Logan, Fire Unfriendly, Acrix, Grandma Likes D&D, Alan, Austin Nut Powers Fry, Stabby Stranger, Glitch Trick, Roman Brown, Shulzari, Christian Mendez, Spot Allen, Flynn1138, Alarain Okapi, OMG It's Big Nick, Steve Wees, D&D and Things, and Jill and Noel LaPlante. If you want your name to be added to this list, you can join our Patreon too at patreon.com/dumdumdice. Thanks to them, and a little bit of thanks to you.